Hi, you. All right. I am about a minute early, but I thought I would allow some time for things to go wrong. And I've already had my first wrinkle, but we've got it. So if you're here, thank you for coming. We are going to be talking to Dr. Leslie Austin, and she is, I'll tell you more about her when she gets on the call. But we're going to talk about narcissism today, and specifically gaslighting. And recently I had what I would call a really, to use understatement, a really eye-opening experience dealing with someone who is narcissistic and spent years being gaslit. So I think that the biggest thing that I took away from it was that I realized I wasn't crazy. So that was a huge thing, because when someone tells you lies and you want more than anything to believe it, and as it turns out, I wasn't crazy. They were lying. All right, so this is me with technology, but I think I'm going to add Leslie right now. Hi.
Oh. Hey, Ruth.
I am so thrilled that worked.
Well, you and me both. How about that?
Yeah. And thank you so much. Time zones kind of got the best of me once again. I need
Yes, that's all right.
some sort of chart. But anyhow, we're going to jump right into it. People are going to pop on. Yeah, we're right at 6 o'clock. Oh, hey, look, I can see people chatting. That's great. Okay. All right. So I'm Ruth Day, and with me is Dr. Leslie Austin. And Leslie and I, how long have you been in? We've been in the same group for at least a few months together.
Yeah, since June 1st about.
Okay. So I was in there a little bit longer.
About 4 months.
Yeah. And I listened
You
to
think I'm in there longer because I make a lot of bad jokes, so you remember.
Oh, no, wait a second. Ask my family. I have the corner on the really bad jokes.
I doubt that. I have to adjust my camera. I apologize. Here we go. There we go. Okay.
There we go. Yeah, you look great.
Yeah, we're good. Thanks.
You look great. We both have lipstick on, so we're all set.
Yeah, well, the war paint, you know.
I do. Actually, my eyes decided they were allergic to the lashes that I always wore, so now I have to go around with bald eyes.
Well.
It's brutal. All right, that and having my ego and my heart handed to me on a platter 2 weeks ago.
Yes, and I know about that, and I'm so sorry to hear about that. It's a tough and really debilitating experience to go through.
There was part of it, and I joke, and this is even in my bio right now, the title of my memoir is going to be "Turns Out I'm Not Crazy." Because that was, I had this whole emotional reaction going, oh my God, I was right. Oh my God. And it was just, and then wave after wave of, despair and anger and shame. And that's part of the reason that I'm talking about this, is because of the shame that I felt. And I mean, just to give a little brief background of it, because I've alluded to it sideways and obliquely quite a bit. But I had been in a relationship with a man on and off for about 5 years, and I was just mad for him. And we would break up and get back together, and just that right there. The reasons we broke up the first time were reasons enough to stay broken up. But
I'm going to interrupt you for just a heartbeat here.
Yeah.
When you broke up, were you the one who did the breakup, or was he?
Which time? He broke up the first time. I broke up the subsequent times. And then I finished it off with a breakup.
Okay. And when you got back together, was it because he approached you, or you changed your mind?
He approached me, and I changed my mind, because I always missed him.
But if you will notice, he approached you at exactly the right moment, when you might be receptive and you were questioning your judgment about being separate, and it's a power and manipulation play. But we'll get into that later.
Oh my.
It's not about the relationship, it's about power and control and domination.
It was, 1000%. about that. So the story in a nutshell, coming soon to a Twitter feed near you. Because, as I was telling my one daughter about it, I kept saying, wait, there's more. And she's like, there cannot be more. But 2 Saturdays ago, I was having a lovely coffee with my daughter, looking at my phone, and I got a notification on Google Maps saying, oh, so-and-so people like your review. So I go, you sort of follow in the rabbit hole, and now I'm in my pictures in Google Maps. And there were pictures of him in a park that we had gone to. So, and I had left them up because he never wanted me to post pictures of him online. And we weren't seeing each other at this point because he'd been awful and really awful when I was in the hospital. But as it turns out, the reason probably that he was really awful is he had got back together a couple of months earlier with another woman. But there were pictures of him in the same place 2 weeks apart from the day that we had spent there. And I'm like, I didn't take that picture. Who is so-and-so? And then the blocks just fell. I ended up connecting with 4 women, and I know of...
These pictures were on his Facebook or Twitter feed?
No.
Where did they pop up? Where did you see them?
Google Maps. So I take a lot of pictures. That's part of me. And with Google, if you take pictures of, say, when I was in New York City, I was taking pictures of different buildings and stuff. And what Google does, because I'm using Google Maps, is they'll put that picture there, and then people will, I want to go to such and such a place, and you can look at pictures. Those are pictures people take. I have like 5.6 million views in Google Maps. I could be a star if,
I didn't know this. This is fascinating. Talk about it.
Fascinating. And our mutual coach, Beth, would be suitably appalled at the transparency of where I am in Google Maps because, they know.
Well, yeah.
And it kind of got driven home here.
I was going to say something about what you put on your Twitter feed, but I'll leave that to you. And I'll tell you why when we get going, because you're dealing with an extreme narcissist. You cannot be truly honest and put yourself out there because they will find a way to get you back, to use it against you. You do want to hold back you don't want to put your real, vulnerable, full self out there. This is a story better not told in public fully.
Okay.
And if you do tell it, a really edited version, and again, I can explain more to you if you want later, but heads up.
No, and
I want to be protective of you because people with this kind of personality structure cannot help themselves. They will be forced to try and retaliate. They have no choice, and I can explain why when we get to I'll tell you about the basics of narcissism.
Okay, so let me.
I'm just astounded that Google Maps does that and that you would get notified that way. That's just mind-boggling to me, but it's amazing. Go ahead.
It is. Yeah. I'm pretty transparent, and I can see now that that might not be a good idea going forward. So
not as much.
I still plan to be. In this group especially, and that's why this is only coming in my private group, because this place is a safe, curated space, and
so people love you here, and you're appreciated for who you are, and this is a safe space to do what you want. And again, I'm sounding like Dr. Scary today. I don't mean to, but I was on the CNN's Headline News Network for over 10 years with Nancy Grace on her crime and trial show as a behavior expert. And what I know is, because I've seen them, everything you have ever written on Facebook is stored in a server, even if you've deleted it. I can't tell you how many crimes I had to read the depositions and all the data on it for the criminal case that we were discussing on the air. And I would read long transcripts of Facebook posts that had been long deleted because they were subpoenaed and Facebook turned them over. So even on Facebook, when you delete posts in this technological age, you need to be a little bit aware that you're deleting it, but somewhere it lives forever in the cloud. So again, a little bit of restraint on really vulnerable things, even in your private group. There's probably more. You can still be vulnerable and share, and people love you for that. It's very much who you are. You're very authentic. We all know that. But a little bit of awareness that the great cloud is watching. I'm sorry to say this, but it's true. It's a little scary, but it's true.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that.
Sure.
It's a sad reality, but yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're still going to be a little vulnerable today, and I do want to introduce you properly.
Okay.
Here.
Now that I'm opening my yap and running off at the mouth.
I'm so excited for this, and I do have a list of questions, and maybe we'll get to them, and maybe we're just All right, but first I want to introduce you. So, if you just come on, this is Dr. Leslie Austin, affectionately known as the Lion-Tamer, which is kind of funny because I'm a Leo. So, come on, Leslie.
Well, I have a Leo moon. It's okay.
That's all right. That's why we get along. She has been a successful executive coach and organizational consultant working with senior executives, leaders, and organizations for over 27 years. She is an expert on improving behavior. She is on the Society for Advancement of Consulting Board, approved in executive coaching and behavior modification, and is in the Mentor Hall of Fame as a certified master mentor and a licensed psychotherapist. You are hella qualified. She has appeared frequently in international media, including regular live guest expert appearances on behavior in CNN's Headline News Network, the Fox News Network, CBS Early Show, among others. Her work focuses primarily on dealing with and managing difficult people and improving challenging behaviors. She has also studied and worked in the world of intuition, psychic phenomenon, and the paranormal for most of her life. Hence, you think just in case you were thinking, oh, well, here's a dry expert. No, Leslie is wonderful, magical, just.
I look like I live in the normal world, but I live in the woo, and
she does
transition as much as possible. Actually, I use with a lot of my corporate clients, once they feel safe, I have often ended up working with them to access their intuition in an intelligent, practical way to help them change aberrant or difficult behaviors. So I've worked with extreme narcissists and the people who have to work with them or around them to manage them and manage themselves. And there are ways to do that. Most people think that emotions are chaotic and out of control, and they're not. There's a logic to emotions, and there is a logic to why narcissists behave the way they do. It's an emotional logic, and unless you are a narcissist, you won't understand it. You will interpret it from your world. Mm-hmm. So there are certain emotional rules or systems from which narcissists operate. And once you start to understand those, you can start to predict what they'll do. And there's strategies that you can learn for how to respond back.
Well, and that's what we want. We want to talk about. So, I mean, my experience, I don't think is unique.
No.
And judging by the number of, other women I found, we all went through it. So, I mean, I have a bunch of questions, things about why we did that, why I did that.
Sure.
And I could even look back at my mother, because my mother is certainly quite narcissistic as well. Mm-hmm. But how do you know? I mean, because it is a term that gets thrown around a lot.
Yeah.
It's like the term empath or this or that. But
right.
What is clinically? What makes someone clinically a narcissist?
Well, first of all, I think the word narcissist is overused and abused and misunderstood. So the first thing I want to say is don't use it as a negative term, like saying, oh, he's a criminal, he's a narcissist, he's a bad guy. Not necessarily. We all need to have a certain amount of healthy narcissism. It is what makes someone a good leader. It's what makes us have a healthy self-respect. It's what makes us make good decisions. I couldn't be talking to you and saying, listen, gang, I know a lot about narcissism. I've been working on this for, 20, 30 years, whatever. I have a system that you won't find out there. You won't find what I'm going to tell you today on YouTube. You won't find it in all the psychological analyses and diagnoses. And you can go, there are wonderful people talking about narcissism out there, and I mean really good. But you can go down a rabbit hole trying to understand the mind and the psyche and how it works. Make yourself crazy. You need to look at the behavior and the actions and what is the secret motivation inside the narcissist for behaving that way. So there's a scale. There's soft narcissists, there's healthy narcissism, and what we're talking about here is unhealthy or unbalanced narcissism, the extreme form. And on the very extreme form, you have sociopaths and psychopaths who actually hurt other people. You're dealing with someone who is, in the older diagnostic terms, on the edge of being a sociopath, because he has one of the hallmarks of this kind of unhealthy narcissism or unbalanced narcissism is they seem to have no conscience and no empathy for other people. Everything they do, think, and say is always about them. So it's like, oh, there's a mirror, I'll look at me. That furniture, do I like it? Never mind what you want. Everything always comes back to being about them, no matter what it is. A very prominent example in our news right now, and I'm not talking about politics, I'm talking about characterological behavior structure, is Mr. Trump, who is a very extreme narcissist. So in the whole discussions of the pandemic and the virus, almost every statement he has made has been about how great he's doing and how it doesn't affect other people so much. That's an extreme narcissistic statement because he doesn't have the political strategy, because his narcissism won't let him, to imagine how will those statements affect other people. So rather than talking about how great he's doing, he needs to say the empathic things like, this is so terrible, I feel for all of you who are suffering, we need to do better. Rather than, I'm doing great, we're handling it better than anybody in the world. That's the narcissist statement. That's just many politicians, movie stars, music stars, artists, not reflection on you, anybody who's in the public eye. There are lots of narcissists out there. So I'm not singling him out as the only one. There are plenty of them out there. So characteristics of narcissists. Emotionally, they live by, I win or die, my way or the highway, black or white. You're with me or you're against me. There is no middle ground. You're either totally in alignment with them or you're evil or bad. One or the other. Where does it come from? Deep childhood trauma and an incredible sense of survival terror. Now, this is something they do not know. It's subconscious. And if you are dealing with someone with these traits, you have to take the high road and be really ethical, because you know this about them. You don't want to hurt them, harm them, or abuse them, no matter how angry you may be at them, because then you're just like they are. You don't want to get caught in their behavioral strategy. So we'll talk about what you do with your feelings a little later, because you have to handle them. But you don't want to, and on just a practical level, why you don't want to retaliate or strike back is they'll get you for it. They're better at it than you are. You're playing in their territory, their rules. Why? They'll get you. So you need to have other strategies to take care of yourself, but not directly with them. So because they live in this very primal, triggered by the amygdala, the limbic system, this primal state of I'm constantly in instant terror of being annihilated. It's such a profound survival terror on the animal instinct level. Mm-hmm. Everything in their world is about, can I control it? Can I master it? Can I feel safe? So when I said earlier, he knew the timing to approach you, to get you back, that's a power thing, because he couldn't control that you were broken up. In order to feel safe, he had to feel like he could control it. And they're very shrewd, and they on an instinct level, they understand people's emotions. So other characteristics are, you'll always feel like you're less than. Mm-hmm. You can never really please enough. Even now, this is confusing, because on the one hand, they'll say, oh, I love you so much. You're so wonderful. You know, I love being with you. And then a minute later, they're saying, You're so stupid. Why'd you do that way? You're upsetting me. You're hurting me. Why would you hurt me? That it's very mixed messages, and it's completely confusing to someone who's not narcissistic because you're not actually doing any of those things. You're just being yourself. They are interpreting everything you're doing and saying as being about them. So in your world, you don't know that. That's why you are being, famous word, gaslighted. And that's why when I sent you that graphic on your page recently from the, I think it's National Domestic Violence group, that's where that graphic, all those phrases comes from. You're less than, what's wrong with you? You must be confused. I never said that. You know, all of those dismissive phrases that just make women crazy.
Yeah.
You know, and so they do that because what they need is to have the other person be off balance. They don't want you secure, having your own feelings that are not about them because they can't control that. They want to throw you off so that they can manipulate. And the more juice they get from having you be upset or off balance or whatever, the more they feel powerful and in control. It's a very shallow and false sense of power, but that's what they're after. It's always in the moment, from moment to moment to moment. So I used to do, just to, with a new client who I wasn't sure how extreme they were sometimes, a corporate client, if I was meeting them over a lunch, which I would do occasionally on a first meeting, and I kind of knew what their issues were because that's why I'd been brought in as a coach. While I was having lunch, I would gently start to move the silverware little bit by little bit away from me and towards them. Move the glass, move the flower arrangement, half an inch, quarter of an inch at a time, without being obvious. And after a while, most of what was in front of me was heading towards their end of the table. And all of a sudden, and they wouldn't realize it, all of a sudden they would kind of notice, and without even thinking, they'd start moving things and putting them back, pushing them way back to my side. That's a power thing. I was invading their territory. They had no idea I was doing it. They had no idea why I was doing it. I never called it to their attention, but the minute they did that, I knew who I was dealing with. Because somebody who's not so narcissistic would say, what's all this stuff doing on my side of the table? What are you doing? What is this? You know, and then I could laugh and say, you know, I'm kind of playing around here. No, they take it really seriously. Oh, this is encroaching on my territory. Bam, put it back. That's the unhealthy narcissist. So on the extreme level, there are people, and there are more men than women, although there are women who are narcissistic like this, because our culture supports men to be this way. A lot of top CEOs and entrepreneurs, Elon Musk is one, Steve Jobs, very famous, extreme narcissist, really nasty to people, brilliant genius, nasty guy. Elon Musk is not known for his savoir-faire and his gentle ways of saying things. You can go down the list. Most of the great entrepreneurs in the United States are very narcissistic, you know, and so we look at those behaviors. It's all about me, I'm so great. And it feels to them like they have a license to not take care of other people, to not be sensitive, to not have to see the feedback of their impact on other people. Narcissists have blinders on, and they really can't see. They don't know how to observe the feedback, observe their impact on someone else. And that's why you can feel invisible in the presence of a narcissist, confused, invisible, put down, less than. You can never please them enough. And yet when you're in the right mood, you're up on a pedestal and it just feels fabulous because they're very charismatic. Very charismatic. So they will make you feel like you're the only person in the world. And it's this wonderful feeling. And then 2 minutes later, they're going to be telling you how stupid you are for washing the dishes that way. Crazy making. Sound familiar?
Just a little, just a little. And it's funny, too, because my mom was very much like that, too. The whole, you're either with me or you're against me. And it's...
Well, one reason people are drawn to narcissists is because it's familiar.
Well, that was going to be one of my questions.
Yeah. And even if you don't have someone who's very narcissistic in your family, Look at our culture. Look at our stars. Look at our idols. Look at almost anybody in the news. Why do we read about why do I know about Johnny Depp and Amber Heard's ugly divorce proceedings? Why do I know all the arguments and who did what to who? Why is that valuable to my life? Because both of them are stars, idealized heavenly figures, extreme narcissists who feel it's important that everybody know every little detail of their lives because it's important. It's about them. You see, the word narcissist comes from the Greek myth about Narcissus. And I won't tell you the whole story, but the basic thing was he ticked off the gods, as happens in many of the Greek myths. And his punishment was that he didn't fall in love with, I forget who the female goddess was, but one of the gods wanted him to fall in love with his daughter and he didn't, something like that. And so to be punished, the curse was that he would be in front of a lake and he would fall in love with his own image and he would die and wither away, constantly staring at his own image, so he couldn't relate to anybody else. That's where it comes from. Narcissus staring at his image in the lake, in love with himself, withering away and dying. Self. And it's a terrible way to live.
I was going to say that sounds awful.
It is. So what I want to say is, it's really important, no matter how hurt you have been and how horrible the experience has been, and it can be devastating. Mm-hmm. It's crucial for your spiritual and emotional and psychological well-being to remember that the narcissist is suffering horribly. It is a horrible way to live. You don't want to be inside their head for a heartbeat. So you need to have a profound sense of compassion for this miserable, tortured person. And it does not for a second excuse the bad behavior. So you can have compassion for how horrible their mindset is, what their inner life is like, that they live like that they treat people that way. And having compassion doesn't mean you say, oh, it's okay because he's suffering. No, he's suffering and he ought not be committing this harm to other people. And so I think that's where I land with it.
With forgiveness as well. When you forgive someone, you don't do it for them. I mean, ultimately, forgiving someone is an act of self-compassion.
Well, to me, forgiveness means making closure with yourself and moving on. Mm-hmm. To me, forgiveness is not about saying it's okay. So I believe very much in forgiveness, to me, meaning closure or resolution, blessing it into its own most perfect good, moving into the future now, taking back your life in the present, and not forgetting. Forgiving does not mean forgetting.
No.
And remembering doesn't mean continuing to stew and chew and want revenge. Now, that impulse for revenge and all the feelings you have when you're this hurt and you've been done this badly are important to note. So things you want to do, and this is a technique, one of two techniques I'm going to be teaching in the emotional mastery program that I'm now developing, is the short phrase is, name it, frame it, tame it. So you want to name the emotion. You want to journal for yourself, write for yourself, think about it, be totally honest with yourself. You may or may not want to talk it out to other people. You may want a private space. Mm-hmm. And then you want to say, what is the important information that this feeling is telling me? What is this telling me that I need or that I feel or that I want? And what's a much better way to get that need met than revenge or retaliation or bad-mouthing him? You want to take your attention off of him completely and use that energy in your own life to do something good for yourself. So let's say you're feeling a lot of anger. Well, anger is a very powerful activating energy. It's ruled by planet Mars in astrology. So what can you do with anger? You can build something. You can create something. You can go pound pillows with a bataka bat, you know. You can write. You can speak forcefully. You can go do something physical. You can dance. You can journal. You can vent that anger and then take the clarity that you get from doing that and the release of the anger to move forward and let it go. That's a very powerful way to use the anger, and it supports you. It's not about the other person. You need to be responsible for your participation in the relationship, for your reactions, for your responses, and for how you close it off, because you will not get closure from an extremely narcissistic person. You will never get closure from them, because any contact you have with them will be about them winning and them having control. Always.
That
is always. So the closure has to be you with you. Letting go, moving on. There are some more soft narcissistic type people that you might be able to have a friendship with at a distance. Many, when you are in a close relationship and you break up, you really have to eventually have no contact whatsoever. You just can't. And the one thing that you need to know in the behavioral rules, and we can get to them, these are the strategies for people to use when dealing with narcissists. The one thing you cannot ever do is say no directly. You have to phrase it. There are certain sentences that I give people to memorize, and they work because they're addressing the emotional mindset, the emotional needs of the narcissistic person. So you can't say no. Something you might say is, I know you think this is this, but it looks to me like this. What do you think? That's giving them the feeling that they're in power in making a decision. You're not saying, no, you're wrong. An example, I had a CEO who had a guy in one of his divisions who brought him a sheet of costs and stuff, and the profit and loss was way, way, way off. The numbers were just off. And the guy is very, very narcissistic. And CEO couldn't just say, look, your numbers are wrong, go fix them. Mm-hmm. Actually, I apologize, it was the other way around. The CEO was a narcissist, and the CEO came up with numbers that were completely screwy. And the guy who reported to him, sorry about that, confusing two different instances. The guy who reported to him couldn't just say, look, those numbers are wrong. These are the real numbers, please look at them. Because he'd get smashed. So what he had to do was say, I can see how you would look at those numbers that way. Now notice he's saying, yes, of course you're right, in the mind of the narcissist. Narcissist is saying, yes, he's agreeing with me. But if you look at the language, he's actually not. Of course I can see that you would see it that way. But I came up with these numbers. So can we go over how I got to these numbers? So the narcissist will interpret that as feeling like the person's asking for help, giving them the feeling of power. But what they're actually doing is not saying, no, you're wrong, but saying, can we look at this way, oh great wise one, and going through the numbers. And when the CEO saw that those numbers were correct, all he did was change a little bit, because it has to be his, and adopt those numbers. But it then became his because he changed one little thing.
It seems
So
like
CEO won. It's always about winning. Winning. So if you want a yes or a no, let's say you want a yes to something. I'd like to go to, I really want to go have Italian food tonight. Let's go have Italian food. They will say no, because it didn't come from them. The way to do that is let them think that they are making the choice. So you go in with two things that are okay with you. Let's say you're okay having Italian food and you're okay having Chinese food. And you prefer the Italian more. So you go and say, look, I can't decide whether I want Italian or Chinese tonight, and I'm slightly favoring Chinese. What do you think? You slightly favor the one, it's okay. You'd be fine with it. You slightly favor the one that you don't really want, and they will automatically say, oh, no, let's do Italian. We have to do Italian. You know, because they have to win. They have to feel like they're in power in making the choice. So That's how, and you do this on emotional levels too. So you don't say no directly. I can see how you think that, but I understand it looks that way to you. And I'm wondering, I see it this way. How do we figure that out? Not I see it this way and it's right. It's like, I see it this way. Can you help me figure this out? Can you help me figure this out so that you get engagement? And it's tricky. And the thing is, it's infuriating to learn this.
It is.
It's irritating, infuriating. I don't know a single person who hasn't ever said to me, why do I have to do all this stuff? Why do I have to learn this? Why me? Why can't they just be a normal person? And the answer is because they can't.
Right.
So if you want to be in relationship with them and you want to, and I'm using this in the pure sense of the word, manipulate them, not in a negative sense, but if you want to manage the relationship and the reactions, you need to learn the strategies for how to do that. And if you're not willing, get out of the relationship.
Yeah.
That's the reality. Yeah. So I'm kind of going over these quickly, but there is a little booklet. Whoops, I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, we can see it, the Lion-Tamer booklet.
Okay, right. So if people watching or listening would like this little booklet, it has more of the strategies, it explains them, or it has lists of all of their behavior. Whoops, I can't see their behaviors in here.
Perfect.
It has the strategies that I'm talking about and more, your reactions to them. If you want this little booklet, I'm happy to give it to you free. I can't find the strategy. Anyway, if you go to www.leslieaustin, LESLIEAUSTIN, my name's simple, leslieaustin.com/gift.
Okay.
GIFT.
Yeah.
If you go there, you can just download this. It's free. It's a handy little guide. The Lion-Tamer's 10 Top Tips. I didn't call it 10 Top. It used to be called 10 Top Tips. Yeah. So those will be very helpful. Now, also, let me just say that I used to do extended work with clients on this who needed support in dealing with really the impact of this in their lives. I don't do that extended support anymore. And I have a very limited number of available slots. But when you download the gift, you'll have the option, if you want to talk to me for half an hour, it's just a complimentary call to see if you want to do a short, intensive work with me that'll really get you going. Feel free to book a half hour. You'll see on the website. You can do that when you get the page. If you're not interested, absolutely fine.
Yeah,
it means you're in good shape.
That's why we're here.
Yeah.
It's so powerful.
Right.
Now, I did see a question in the chat, and I don't want to lose it. It says, what if they won't let you out of the relationship?
That happens a lot, and it especially happens in relationships where there is a lot of psychological and emotional abuse, and the woman it's more women than men, although not exclusively, where the woman is really emotionally debilitated and not feeling strong, feeling very weak. And it can be one step short of needing to go to a shelter, that kind of a situation. If they won't let you out of the relationship, you have to be very strategic. The most important and hardest thing is to stop responding to the verbal content of what they say to you. Stop answering what they say, because they are masters at hooking you. So you need to take a half a step back and look at the playbook of what are they trying to achieve by saying this to you. Look at the emotional motivation underneath. And you need to start answering in a polite, dignified, non-personal way. Because you need to see the strategy that all of those things that they are saying to you to hook you, to get you back, or to get that juice that they're winning, that they've thrown you off, that they have connection, that they are powerful because they're upsetting you. So when you start cutting off that juice, and somebody says, I just had a situation with a client who managed to leave a very abusive boyfriend who she'd been living with for several years. And he was very emotionally abusive and psychologically abusive. And at one point, he physically hurt her a little bit. And the minute she started letting him know that she was going to pack up and move out, he began, "Oh, I love you so much. Why do you do this to me? You're hurting me so badly." And she got very confused. Fortunately, she stuck to her inner truth and she did get herself out. And he was horrible about it. He was, "Nobody can come in this house. I'll call the police on you if you let movers in." Craziness. Craziness. Actually, I'm dealing with two people like this in this kind of a situation. And when she got out and she began unpacking her boxes, she never told him where she was moving to, so he couldn't find her.
Correct.
She has not answered a single text or email. She finally sent one email because she realized some of her stuff wasn't there and she needed to find out. And he keeps sending her emails. "I love you. How are you? Where are you? I hope we can talk. I don't understand." All of these lovey-dovey, touchy-feely messages. And God bless her, she is sticking to her inner truth and she is being resolute and not answering a single one. What will happen over time is he will lose interest because he's not getting that charge. And she's already moving on, and he will find someone else to do that playbook with. And we'll just get in another relationship like that because he's not doing any self-examination at all. He's completely caught in his patterns. And this is not the first relationship he's done that in. So there's serial relationship abusers. It's terrible.
Yeah, no, awful. I definitely can vouch for that.
I just want to say one more thing, which is really important. If you are the person who has been in a relationship with someone like this, it is crucial that you do not go into what's wrong with me. How did I not know better? I'm so ashamed. I'm so screwed up. Oh my God, I need years of therapy now. What's wrong with me? How come I did this? I beg you, please, please have compassion for yourself. Take care of yourself. You did nothing wrong. Why you got into that was you had a need to be needed. And you didn't know the warning signals that you were dealing with someone who was not being authentic. That's the bottom line. It's a kind of an innocence combined with, and I'm not saying this in a negative sense, neediness. We all need connection. And sometimes we need connection so much that we're willing to not see the negative things because we're afraid of not being connected. That's just us messy human beings. So I'm not saying that as a negative in any way. Most human beings need connection in order to thrive. Yeah. But you can grow and learn from this and see the warning flags and learn to take care of yourself and have a rich enough life that you don't go into another relationship like that just to be adored. So if somebody's sweeping you off your feet at the beginning of a relationship and they're adoring you and it's just so glorious and it's so extreme, more than the initial flush of, wow, I'm really hot for this person and I love them, the initial romantic bloom. If it stays that way and you're so special, that's a red flag. You need time to see if there's a friendship there. You need time to see, is this person responsive to you? Do they see that you have moods? Do they see that you have needs? Are they paying attention? Or is it just, oh my God, you're up on a pedestal, or you're so stupid? The minute you're in that polarity, think about whether you want that relationship or not. Does that make sense? I hope that makes you feel a little bit more compassionate towards yourself and not beat yourself up. It's terrible. Because if you beat yourself up, that's what the narcissistic person wants. They want you to feel worse. They want you to feel down on yourself because then they win. Don't give it to them. That's a kind of revenge or retaliation that's really satisfying because what you're doing is taking the high road, keeping your own dignity, thriving in your own life, empowering yourself and moving on, and they can't do a thing about it, and it is not about them in any way.
That's, and I think and I wanted to ask you this because I think, as you've said a lot of this, I'm going, you know what? This isn't the first relationship I've had with a narcissist in my life. This is something that has happened.
Or not. Sure.
So is there types of people that will, I mean, my mother, without wanting to sound like, blaming my mother for everything, but my mother.
Well, like I'm saying, and you're growing up and you're conditioning, it's familiar to you.
Yeah. So is it?
So, and our most intimate connection is with our mother, whether it's good or troubled or mixed or whatever. And so if you're looking for a romantic connection with someone, an intimate connection, the familiarity is going to, and it's just not a conscious thing, but if it's familiar, it feels like family, it feels like connectedness. Mm-hmm. So it requires a little bit of extra consciousness on your part to just, I know people hate when I say this. I hated it when I was told this.
Go for it.
Slow down at the beginning of a relationship. Slow down. Enjoy it. Take it at a pace. See how the other person behaves, never mind what they say. See how you feel in response to them. If there's something really good there that you can build in an intimate connection, it will grow over the time, and the slowing down will make it stronger, more intimate, more compelling, and more connected, and more lasting. If you have to rush into it, you don't. It has the markings of that kind of rushing out of neediness, mm-hmm. a not healthy neediness.
Yes. I think I get you right there. I mean, we are all a little needy. I mean, we all want to be connected. We all want to be heard and known and all that.
Right.
So I think you've probably heard this. But what are the absolute worst things you can do when you realize you're with a narcissist?
Fight back. Say no. Retaliate. Challenge. Why? You're on their territory. They're better at it than you are. They will always win. Always, always, always. If you're not like them, don't stand a chance. So you need strategies. You need to be smarter than. You need to be more aware. And you need coping strategies. Like the ones in that little booklet. If you just learn the ones in that booklet, it'll put your way forward. Now, there's a pattern. If you do those, if you really do the work, when I've worked with people, first, you get really irritated and annoyed that you have to do the work. Yeah. So I ask you, is this person worth it? And they may be. There are I know a lot of people who are a little more narcissistic than I like, because I'm narcissistic too. We all are. Mm-hmm. There are some people who are worth it because they're really interesting. So I learned to have to manage it. Or I've coached a lot of people over the years who deal with very senior executives, and they have to because their job or their career depends on it. So is it worth it? You betcha. What happens when you learn these strategies and you get good at them is they become instinctive over time, and you don't have to think about them. And because the narcissist isn't challenged by you and you're still around, over time they will trust you as much as they're able to trust, which is partially. Mm-hmm. And they will only go after you once in a while instead of regularly and less frequently, and you'll be able to manage it much better. And you'll understand what it is when they do. You'll know how to get yourself out of it. And you'll build a good relationship with them, and they will turn to go pick on someone else where they can get the juice. No. So you'll become, but they will perceive you as being on their team. Being loyal and on their team. Now, if you notice, again, I'm going to use Mr. Trump as an example. In the news headlines, he picks people to be on his team. And then the minute they disagree with him publicly, or they say something they don't, the minute Dr. Fauci disagreed with something the president said about the virus, the president started bad-mouthing his own Dr. Fauci, the head of the virus discussions and research. That's because in the president's mind, as a narcissistic personality type, he sees the statement of truth that opposes what he said as disloyal. Mm-hmm. It's not about the truth. It's about, are you with me or against me, win or die? my way or the highway, black or white, with me or against me. So it's like that when you're dealing with narcissists. So don't challenge. You'll learn these behaviors. You'll be irritated. Soon they'll become instinctive. It gets easier. And then as you learn them and you get good at them and you see that they work more often than not, you will feel really embarrassed for the narcissistic person, because your reaction will be, don't they see what I'm doing? Don't they know? It's so obvious. It's so transparent. The answer is no, they don't. And that's why you have to take the high road, because you know something about them they don't. Don't abuse it. Don't bring that karma on yourself. You know, treat them well. And I know it's hard, but you have to look in the mirror and live with yourself. And you don't want to see little reflections of that kind of behavior when you look at yourself in the mirror. You're responsible for taking the high road and keeping your own dignity and being the best person you can be. And the best thing is not to become part of that dark, ugly energy by retaliating. The best thing is to bless it, make your closure, and move away. Let it go. Let them go bother somebody else. Hopefully they won't, but not you. You don't collaborate with letting them abuse you.
Now, is there a chance that they will ever get self-awareness, or they could ever be motivated enough to change?
Yes, it's rare, but it does happen. And when I've seen it happen is when they're in a situation where they're faced with a crash and burn. They've been wounded. Something has gone terribly wrong. They're in big trouble. They may or may not know why or how. With me, often it's somebody in the corporate world, it's somebody bigger and badder than they are who said, listen, sonny boy, you're going for coaching. And they hate it, but they know there's trouble. And I have a way of working with them in the first session or two that begins to win their trust, where they realize I'm really their ally, and I want them to win bigger and be a better king and a better, head of the whatever, a better God. That I'm not remedial. I'm actually, their company's paying me a lot of money to help them thrive, to get better, and that they're getting bad press because they're not noticing people's reactions to them. And so if they start to become aware, they can control how people relate to them. They'll win bigger and better. So I'm structuring what I do in a totally narcissistic emotional structure so they can take it in. Those guys do change, and they actually become much better people. They own their behaviors, they change them. And I got to tell you, when they finally understand what's going on, most of those clients have been the smartest, most interesting, often hilarious, really, really accomplished, smart people who got out of their own way and got their ego back in its proper place. And the best thing that ever happens for me over the years is when I've gotten an unexpected phone call from somebody's wife who says, I don't know what you're doing, but this is the guy I married in high school. Thank you. So what I'm secretly doing is an undercover cop for good. Is helping them find their heart. And I can only tell them that after they trust me. And after they're succeeding and getting some wins, and they see that this work really does improve their lives. And they do get more successful. Our culture tells men they have to be these rough, tough, abusive bullies, that they should behave that way in order to succeed, and it's not true. It's just not true.
Now, that said, I'm pretty sure you don't ever mean that we should go out and try to change the narcissists in our life.
No.
Because I can feel that.
No, you won't be able to. What you can do is manage your relationship with one if they are open, if they're not on the extreme end of the scale. If they're on the extreme end of the scale, what you need to do is get out strategically. And that's where I talked about not responding, not talking back, keeping your dignity, making separations. In that case, if they're on your Facebook page, you need to block them, but not right away. You need to think about which friends might spill the beans about what you're doing and tell your friends to please not communicate with him, because he'll go looking through your friends to try and make contact with you. They can be very relentless. So there's a period of time, especially if you've broken off the relationship, there's a period of time where you're going to have to just pull the reins in and be very careful about what you post publicly. And over time you can manage it, but you can't go on with your normal life because they'll find a way to get to you or to people around you.
Yeah, the one time we got back together, he was sending cards to where I worked.
Yeah. Yeah. Or, he'll call your mother, or he'll call your friends, or he'll call a relative and say, how's she doing? I haven't heard from her. And be all nicey. I'm so concerned about her. And say, oh, no, she's doing fine. She's doing this and she's doing that. And she's in this city, and you're in trouble. He's stalking you because he wants to win. And it's a compulsion. So if they're the kind where you learn some of these strategies over time, if they're receptive, you can actually point out what you're doing, and they'll work with you on it. And here's the thing. Just like people with narcissistic traits have their own behavior patterns and personalities, we have ours. So we have to be a little bit careful demanding someone change for us, lest they demand we change for them.
Yeah.
It goes both ways. So it's a negotiation for, can you meet me in the middle, so that neither one of you is asked to give up who you are. And it can be done sometimes, and sometimes it can't. And you need to know when to walk. Go post that graphic from the National Domestic Violence Group again. And if you hear those phrases, or you feel the list of feelings that are in my little booklet, if you feel those feelings, less than, frustrated, demeaned, angry, confused, always wrong, those are red flags. And unless you can get comfortable with these strategies and see if you get a response and the person softens, sorry, you're going to need to leave, or you're going to live that way. And that's not for me to say what you should do. I really mean that.
No, yeah, absolutely. I was listening to a YouTube video on narcissism, and what the gentleman said was that if you engage with a narcissist long enough on their level, that you too will become narcissistic.
Yes, you have to in order to survive. So my way or the highway. My way or the highway. I win or I lose. So if you're going to be with me, you will engage in my behavior strategies. So I will pick a fight with you and demean you and get you to fight back or crumble and be crushed, and I win either way. But you're still in his playbook. You're still reacting and you're still responding in his playbook. Absolutely. You become part of their world. Here's the bottom line. As we kind of wrap up a little bit, the bottom line is, hang on, sorry. The bottom line is, with the narcissist, I just lost what I was going to say.
The bottom line,
having a thunderstorm outside. I got distracted. Excuse me.
Apparently, I'm echoey.
Okay, so the bottom line with a narcissist is that they are unable to experience anyone as a separate person. Anyone or anything that they experience in their worlds is an extension of themselves. So you only matter in terms of how they feel when they're with you. And if they don't like what they feel, you don't matter. If they like what they feel, it's good to have you there at the moment. But the minute you oppose or disagree, you're no good again. They don't see you as a separate individual person. And when you have a parent who's narcissistic, that's really hard, because parents automatically see their kids as an extension of themselves. And if they're very narcissistic, it's even more so. So the process of individuation and developing an individual and separate personality is going to be more complex for a child of an extremely narcissistic person, because you're taught to always feel like you're meant to be pleasing someone else with your existence. Mm-hmm. And that's a characteristic of what you'll feel in a narcissistic relationship. You're in the relationship, and what matters is how they feel. And you better go deal with your own feelings somewhere else if they don't like what your feelings are. Bottom line.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sorry, I can hear the echo now. So I'm pretty echoey. Sorry about that. We'll figure this out. We are wrapping up, and I know both Leslie and I have to be in another call. But thank you so much.
My pleasure.
I'll put the gaslighting graphic back up again, and I will put a link for your guideline handbook
Gift, right. leslieaustin.com/gift. And once you download that, if you want to talk to me, there are not a lot of slots open, but if you want to talk to me, it's a complimentary call. Feel free to schedule one.
And Leslie is amazing. I have worked with her.
Thank you. And one more quick thing. See, I'm trying to remember all this in our mastery program. I just started a new Facebook group. There's no content up there yet. There will be soon. It's Dr. Dr. Leslie Austin, just the way my name is spelled on the screen here. And it's on Facebook. And I invite you all to please join. I'm about to start putting up content very shortly. I'm just getting the banner finished, and then I'm going to start uploading some really interesting things. So I invite you all to join me there. Thank you.
Yes. All right, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of the night. Send me messages, what you think. Damn echo.
Thank you.
All right. We'll talk to you later.
Bye-bye. Thanks.